My name's Naomi Stockman from My Local Hypnosis. I'm talking today about getting stuck when you're on your journey, your healing journey. And I see people all the time that they come to me and they say, look, I've already done so much work on myself. And I've been there as well, where you're like, I've done so much work on myself, and you sort of become, your ego kind of takes over and says, look, you kind of know about self-development now. You're not a newbie to this. You're not a beginner. So no one wants to be at the bottom of the ladder. No one wants to be the beginner. When we first start something, we know we're a beginner, but once we've been doing it for a little while, we get that sort of like, I guess it's a self-protection that, we want to know something or for our experience to have value or to be, acknowledge that we're not at the starting point. We're not completely at the beginning. And I find that once we get to that point, that we start to close off. And when we close off, we're no longer seeking openly. So in the beginning, if your life is completely a huge mess, your emotions are in turmoil, you're in extreme distress or emotional pain every day you wake up, you think to yourself, I know I need to do something, anything, and you're kind of desperate. Then when you reach out, you're reaching out in like, I hope this person is the savior. You're like reaching up like this, like help me. But what happens is when our lives get a little bit more normalized, we get into a state where we wake up in the morning and there's nothing too terrible, but we're still experiencing things that we have to manage. Like there's still maybe anxiety there, but you can manage it. There's depression there, but you can manage it. There might be disappointment or hurt, or you might not have the relationship you want or the friendships you want or whatever. You kind of might be feeling a bit lonely, but you can manage it. And you've done the work. You've done the healing. You might have, connected with your inner child and cried in a few your sessions and done some meditations and some breath work. And it's just been this journey that you've been on for a while. And then you get stuck. And the reason we get stuck, and this has happened to me as well, it happens to all of us, is that we're like that primary school child. That age that kids get to where they start going, yeah, I know, or they start making like ludicrous statements, and the parents thinking, okay, well, they're only a child. I won't make them feel, embarrassed that they've got this wrong. But as a parent, we can look at the child and think, well, that's how a child thinks. And we are always the child, like that child, in every journey if we're not to where we want to get to. So if you in your life are still experiencing things that you don't want to experience, and look, there's still things in my life that I don't want to experience as well, then you're not at the end of the journey. There's still more to understand. There's more to learn. There's more to gain. There's more to explore. There's more to be open to. And I know when I go, I do a lot of programs that other people host. So I'm a perpetual student of other people's stuff. And when I'm looking at what course to do, because I've done so many courses in so many modalities and, read so many books, listened to so many audios, watched so many YouTubes, that it gets to the point where as I'm starting to evaluate if I want to do a course or not, I'm like, okay, is this going to have something new in it, or is it just more of what I already know, packaged in a different way or presented by somebody else? And I'm kind of evaluating, what's this person that's presenting the course, what's their journey along the road? Is it similar to mine? Am I just gaining back what I've, hearing what I've already heard? And what I've found is that it doesn't matter if you already know it, because knowledge doesn't mean anything unless you're applying it. And so if that pain, if that gap in your experience of life, that's the trigger, that's the benchmark. It doesn't matter what you know consciously. It doesn't matter what you can talk about consciously. There's so many people that I see that are living in poverty and addiction that can talk the talk. They know the stuff, but they're not applying it. And the healing stuff happens when we apply this stuff and when we can live it and speak it. And when the mind is actually being utilized in its true purpose. The closing of the mind, the one biggest limiting thing in our life isn't fear of doing something. It's not thinking you can't do it. It's not any of those things. The thing that will really hold you back is if you think you already know. If you say to yourself, well, I already know, I've already done it, I've already this, I've already that, because it's like when you're in a conversation, you don't gain anything from speaking, you gain from listening. It's always when you're open to receiving. And if you think to yourself, you know, I already know everything this person's going to say, you are going to receive zero, zip. And even when you do listen to what they're saying, you're only going to be going, yep, I know that, I know that, I know that. And your mind isn't even going to pick up the bits that you don't know, because you're only matching to what you already know. And that's a really, really important thing if you're considering, if you have anxiety, you have depression, you have loneliness or fears or anything at all, is that if you're going to do the work, you have to go in with an open mind. Now, I've been to courses where they've said, leave everything you know at the door. It's not useful to you in here. And you sit in a group of people and people are like, oh, when I did this program, or when I did that, or when I did this, and they're continuously trying to relate back to stuff that they've already done. The truth is that anytime you're committing to any kind of healing, growth, learning, therapy stuff, you need to walk into that place with everything you already think you know, or everything you already think you've done, everything you already think you've healed. Leave it behind, leave it outside, because you're not going to gain anything from bringing that with you. And I've so many times had where, and this has been me as well, because you don't know what's not healed. It doesn't jump up at you. All that you get in life is a mirror back. So if you're feeling completely, left out, for example, then feeling left out or rejected or not belonging is something that isn't healed, no matter how much you think you've done the work. So it's what's showing up in your life. And I've had situations where I've thought, I've been in a course and it's been a course about something I haven't known anything about, and I've been there open and willing to receive, and they've asked for a volunteer at the front of the room, and I thought, okay, so I know something that is distressing that's happened to me, let's work through that. And I honestly felt that there was no residual emotion in that event. But going through the event, stuff came up, and it wasn't the stuff that you'd think would come up. Nothing's ever what you think it's going to be. It's always, the unconscious always has a whole separate thing that you don't have access to. So it's never going to be what you think it's going to be. So you need to be open to receiving. You need to be open to listening. You need to stop thinking about what you already know and stop thinking about what you've already healed. When people say to me, I've forgiven people, I've put that behind me, blah, 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 that if there's still distress or discomfort, emotional, if you're not living a life that is feeling like absolute bliss, then there is the stuff that hasn't been dealt with. There is still hooks to events, emotional triggers, emotional baggage, emotional beliefs, resentment, anger, grief, sorrow, fear, all that stuff's still there at a certain level attached to certain things. So yes, your life might have improved, but there's always a next level and a next step. So remember that your limitation isn't the fact that you can't do it or you won't do it, or you're scared of doing it. It's the fact that you think that you've already done the work and that you already know everything. That's going to block you.